your sovereignty remains. You are the one true God. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. Faithfulness, your love extends through times of turbulence, adopting those who call upon your name. And every generation joins in songs of grateful praise. You are the one true God. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. Eternal, immortal, invisible God. Eternal, immortal, invisible God. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You are God.
This morning we're going to remain standing. It's really good to see everybody this morning. And if we'd like to welcome any visitors that are here, we hope you feel welcome. And we want to continue to sing to the Lord King Jesus. He reigns from everlasting to everlasting and rules over us with amazing sacrificial love. It's the kind of love that no one else can give.
Forgiven because you were forsaken. I'm accepted, you were condemned. And I'm alive and well, your spirit is within me, because you died and rose again. I'm forgiven because you were forsaken. And I'm accepted, you were condemned. I'm alive and well, your spirit is within me, because you died and rose again. Amazing love, and how can it be that you, my King, would die for me? Amazing love, and I know it's true. It's my joy to honor you in all I do. Let me honor you. I'm forgiven because you were forsaken. I'm accepted, you were condemned. I'm alive and well, your spirit is within me, because you died and rose again. Amazing love, and how can it be that you, my King, would die for me? Amazing love, and I know it's true. It's my joy to honor you let me honor you. You are my King. You are my King. Jesus, you are my King. Jesus, you are my King. Amazing Lord, how can it be that you, my King, would die for me? Amazing Lord, I know it's true. It's my joy to honor you in all I do. Let me honor you in all I do. Let me honor you.
All right. So I will be reading from Ephesians 1:18 through 23. I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people, and his incomparably great power for us who believe. That power is the same as the mighty strength he exerted when he raised Christ from the dead and seated him at the right hand in the heavenly realms, far above all rule and authority, power and dominion, and every name that is invoked, not only in the present age, but also in the one to come. And God placed all things under his feet and appointed him to be head over everything for the church, which is his body, the fullness of him who fills everything in every way.
So let's sing to Christ, who is exalted far above rule and authority and power and dominion, because he is worthy.
Do you feel the world is broken?
We do.
Do you feel the shadows deepen?
We do.
But do you know that all the dark won't stop the light from getting through?
We do.
Do you wish that you could see it all made new? We do. Is all creation groaning? It is. Is a new creation coming? It is. Is the glory of the Lord to be the light within our midst? It is. Is it good that we remind ourselves of this? It is. Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll? The Lion of Judah, who conquered the grave. He is David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slave. Is he worthy? Is he worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is he worthy of this? Yes. Does the Father truly love us? He does. Does the Spirit move among us? He does. And does Jesus, our Messiah, hold forever those he loves? He does. Does our God intend to dwell again with us? He does. Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll? The Lion of Judah, who conquered the grave. He is David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slave. From every people and tribe, every nation and tongue, he has made us a kingdom and priests to God to reign with the Son. Is he worthy? Is he worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is he worthy? he worthy? He is.
Amen. You may be seated.
Bit of a sermon introducing our new sermon series through the Old Testament book of Numbers. We'll spend most of our time on that, and then we'll transition towards the end and have a little shorter Mother's Day message as well. So 2-for-1 deal. You probably remember learning about Samuel Morse in school. Samuel Morse, an American inventor who is known for improving on the telegraph before the invention of the the telegraph is before the invention of the telephone or satellites, and it was like the first technology that allowed people to communicate across large distances. Samuel Morse also developed Morse code, which uses a series of dots and dashes to represent letters. And so there's a picture of the device, maybe you already went up there, the device that sends that electrical impulse through the wires and to the receiver on the other end. So this is like early text messaging, right? The first use of the telegraph the first use of Morse code on the telegraph was on May 24th, 1844, when a message was sent from Washington, D.C. to Baltimore with a message chosen by Samuel Morse. Interestingly, the first message sent by Morse code was a Bible verse from the King James Version, from the Old Testament, and from the book of Numbers, Numbers 23:23, and it said this: "What hath God wrought? What hath God wrought?" Samuel Morse was a committed Christian. We don't use the words hath and wrought very much these days. Modern translations of this verse sometimes say something like, "Look what God has done." And so Samuel Morse honored the Lord by transmitting his word and giving God the credit for the power and the creativity used in developing this technology, which paved the way for other technologies we still use. Samuel Morse knew his Bible and even the book of Numbers. Numbers is a book that many of us skip or skim. If you read through the Bible, maybe you kind of enjoy Genesis and Exodus and feel like you've got some momentum, and then you get to Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy and maybe skip a couple there. Many Christians today would be hard-pressed to name more than a couple passages or themes in the book of Numbers, much less be able to quote it. Yet God has included this book in his word. It is God-breathed. It is useful for us. And through studying the book of Numbers, we can behold the glory and the grace of God. And so we'll be following up our study of Leviticus with a study through Numbers. As we did with Leviticus, we're not going to hit every verse, every passage, that kind of thing, but we will learn in general some of the themes dealt with in the book and read this account of God dealing with his people, Israel, after their delivery from Egypt in slavery. Let's do a quick comparison. We're going to watch a short video here in a moment, but a quick comparison just so you can see the continuity and some of the differences between the book of Leviticus and the book of Numbers. So both were written by Moses. Moses is still the leader of Israel through the book of Numbers. Moses and his brother Aaron and his sister Miriam are kind of the leaders of the community. Leviticus is the third book, Numbers is the fourth book, so it's the next book chronologically. In Leviticus, there's not a lot of action. There's not a lot of story, not a lot of activity. It's all in the form of law, and it all takes place at Mount Sinai. So Moses is going up on Mount Sinai, coming down, meeting with the Lord in the tent, and then delivering the law to the nation of Israel. In Numbers, though, they leave Mount Sinai. Now is the time to move on, and the initial destination is the Promised Land in Canaan. But as we'll see, that things get delayed a little bit. Whereas Leviticus dealt with establishing the covenant, Numbers deals with the people trying, sometimes not very well, not trying very well, but trying to live in this covenant that has been made now between God and his people. Leviticus dealt more so with how to approach God. Remember the whole sacrificial system and the priests and all that. Numbers deals now with learning to trust and obey God. So it's not so much how to approach God, kind of initially coming to him in grace, but how to live out that faithfulness in covenant. We're going to turn off the lights here and watch a short video. This is the Bible Project video that introduces the book of Numbers.
The book of Numbers gets overlooked, partly because it has a really boring name.
Which is a shame. In the Hebrew tradition, the book's name is Bamidbar, which means in the wilderness. And it's an epic travelogue about Israel's journey through the desert on their way to the land promised to Abraham.
Now, this pilgrimage should only take about 2 weeks on foot.
But instead, it takes them about 40 years.
That's crazy. It's practically half of someone's lifetime.
Yeah, it's a very long camping trip with lots of interesting stories, but let's remember, it's most helpful to back up and start with how this book is designed.
Right.
So the book is broken up into 5 sections. There are 3 wilderness locations broken up by 2 road trips that link all the pieces together.
The first wilderness section is Mount Sinai, right here on the map.
And then in the second section, they travel to a region called Paran.
A whole bunch of things happen here in the wilderness of Paran.
And then in this 4th section is Israel's road trip to Moab.
The book ends with a large section in the wilderness of Moab, right across the Jordan River from the Promised Land.
Now, through all of these sections, the storyline just flows like a gripping dramatic movie. Everything starts great, but then the trip goes horribly wrong, and it all ends with the final redemptive moment, the surprising act of God's grace.
So let's jump into the story. It all begins at the wilderness at Mount Sinai, and we've become really familiar with this mountain.
Yeah, if you remember, Israel came here after Egypt, and they formed a covenant with God here, got the 10 Commandments here, built the tabernacle here, and they've been at this mountain for 1 full year.
And now they take a census to number the people as they prepare to leave.
Right, and they're given these instructions for how to organize all those people in the camp. God's presence in the tabernacle, and then the tribe of Levi and the priests around it, and then the rest of the tribes around them. And this pattern, it's this visual symbol for how God's holiness is at the center of their existence as a people.
And they're told that when the cloud of God's presence moves, they're to pack up and travel with it.
Yeah, the Ark of the Covenant is carried by the Levites out in front, and then the tribe of Judah, and on and on. And this order is also a symbol for how God's holy presence is their leader and guide through the wilderness.
We begin the second section of the book with enthusiasm as they leave Mount Sinai and travel up to Paran. God's with them, everything's organized. This is going to be great.
But it's not great. After just 3 days on the road, the people are complaining about their hunger and thirst, and then even Moses' brother and sister start bad-mouthing him in front of all the people.
Not a great start. But now we're into the third section, the wilderness of Paran. This is where they send the 12 spies to scout out the Promised Land. 2 of those spies come back and they're really optimistic.
But the other 10 are freaked out, and they don't trust God, and they go around saying, we're going to get annihilated in there. And so they start a mutiny, and they try to appoint a new leader who's going to take all the people back to Egypt. And so basically, they are refusing to go into the Promised Land, and God honors their choice. He says that this generation is going to wander for 40 years and die in the wilderness, and only their kids will get to enter the Promised Land.
You know, this story here gets brought up many times in the Bible by different authors.
Yeah, and it always serves as a reminder that while God remains faithful to his people and his promises, he will honor their choices. He'll let them waste their whole lives if they choose to live in rebellion.
Okay, so the trip's been a disaster so far.
And it gets worse here in this 4th section as they're traveling to Moab. Even Moses has a moment of rebellion and is disqualified from entering the Promised Land. Then there's another rebellion among the people that results in this snake attack. And what makes all these rebellions even worse is that every step of the way, God has been providing. He's been offering forgiveness. He's been giving them food and water and this crazy stuff called manna.
Yeah, what is that stuff?
Yeah, no idea. But in spite of all this, they keep complaining, and they say that they wish they had died in slavery in Egypt.
If I was God, I would just give up on these guys.
You would think. But that's what makes this story in the final section so surprising. Israel has just arrived in Moab, and the king of Moab, he's freaked out that this huge group of people is traveling through his land. So he hires this pagan sorcerer named Balaam to pronounce curses on them.
This guy means business.
Yeah, and so Balaam, he says, okay, I'm going to pray to the Hebrew God, and let's see what happens. And 3 different times he attempts to curse them, but each time he finds that he can utter only blessing. Most surprising is the last blessing, where he prophesies that out of Israel will rise a victorious king. And this king is somehow going to be connected to God's promise to Abraham to bless all nations through this family. So here's Israel rebelling down in the camp, totally unaware that up in the hills, God is protecting and even blessing them.
The book ends here in Moab. Israel's getting ready to go into the Promised Land, They count up everyone again, just like at the beginning. They're leaving the old generation behind, including Moses.
But before they leave Moses, he gives them his last words of warning and wisdom. And that speech is what the next book, Deuteronomy, is all about.
This video is funded by 756 people.
All right. Let's hit a couple highlights here. Going to review some of what was shared in the video there. Again, the title Numbers seems fitting, again, with the book starting and ending with a census of Israel. Kids, if you don't know what a census is when they count all the people. So the United States does a census, I think every 10 years, right? Well, there's a census at the beginning of Numbers and at the end of Numbers. And again, Numbers covers this roughly 40 years that the Israelites spend in the wilderness between Mount Sinai and then their arrival in the Promised Land. The census at the beginning of Numbers tells us how many Israelites there are at the beginning of this trip, or at least they count the fighting men, the men of fighting age. And then the census at the end of the book tells us how many fighting men are available at the end of the 40 years. I want to remind you that this period of wandering in the wilderness is celebrated as one of Israel's feasts. Remember, the Feast of Tabernacles celebrates God's faithfulness to the people. Remember, the Jews even today live in tents and booths or shelters for a whole week to celebrate God's faithfulness, providing manna and quail in the wilderness, providing water, protecting them, that kind of thing. You can go ahead to the next slide there. They mentioned in the video that there are other places in Scripture, Old Testament and New Testament, that refer back to this whole episode. And so, again, praising God for his faithfulness or using examples of the Israelites and their unfaithfulness as warnings to us. You can go ahead to the next slide there. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 would be a good example for us to be reminded as we start in a series through Numbers that this is Old Testament. And sometimes we might feel like the Old Testament's irrelevant, but Paul doesn't see it that way. He sees that this book of Numbers is relevant for us as Christians. He says these things happened to them as examples and were written down as warnings for us, on whom the fulfillment of the ages has come. So these are relevant for Christians. They're things that we can learn about God and his faithfulness and his love and his grace, and also learn about ourselves and learn about humanity and our tendency to grumble and to rebel and to not go along with the commitments that we made. You can go ahead to the next slide. As you see here, Numbers contains lessons for Christians today about God's character. What is God like? God is a provider. He provides food and water for these people, 2 million people roughly. You know, if it's 650-some thousand in fighting men, it's probably roughly 2 million total Israelites when you include the women and the children and the elderly. Okay, so roughly 2 million people. And God is a provider. God can provide for all these people in the wilderness. We also see here that God is holy. He punishes people that disobey him. We also learn about the importance of faithfulness and obedience. Remember, Pastor Sean read for us last week, preached out of the end of Leviticus, and there's all these warnings about, promises for those who are faithful to the Lord and warnings for those who are disobedient to the Lord. And now that's going to play out in real time in the book of Numbers. The warnings were given, and now let's see how it plays out. Another thing that we can learn about in the book of Numbers is just what it's like to live as a pilgrim, a stranger, a foreigner, not having a permanent home. They're in these temporary tents, and that's a reminder for us that we're just passing through. This is all temporary. Our citizenship is in heaven. We also read in the book of Numbers, we'll find some principles for leadership and shepherding. We'll see some of those even this morning. And then again, just God's ongoing faithfulness and provision. As you saw there are also a number of pointers ahead to Jesus and to the gospel. Some people even see that layout of the camp as the shape of a cross, and the tribe of Judah from which Jesus comes is, kind of at a central place there, right near the tabernacle. That's the Messianic tribe. There are some other pointers, here in the book of Numbers to Jesus. For example, this 40-year period of wandering in the wilderness seems to correspond to Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness. Remember that he was tempted for 40 days. Or the bread from heaven, the manna from heaven. Jesus reveals that he is the true bread from heaven, and he is the rock from which we get living water. If you know John chapter 3, verse 16, for God so loved the world, if you look the two verses before that, actually put that in context, refers back to the book of Numbers. So we'll save that for later, but you might be familiar with that. Here's an outline of Numbers. They gave one up there and kind of broken into smaller parts. This is just a little bit more simplified. We're actually going to start into Numbers chapter 1 through 10 today, and that's this section where they're preparing to go out into the wilderness. So this is all before they leave Mount Sinai. And then, again, you see there, Numbers 11 to 21 is this period of wandering in the wilderness, and that makes up the majority of the time. It includes some different stops along the way. There's a mixture here of narrative accounts and some giving of additional laws. And then the last section there is on the plains of Moab, and that's just immediately across from going into Canaan. I think there's a map here, if you can put that up. It's hard to see. Up in the top right is where they end up at the end of the book of Numbers, right across in the book of Joshua. They cross into the promised land. So Numbers gets you right to the kind of just ready to cross into the promised land. You can go ahead to the next slide. Just to give you a time frame, chapters 1 to 10 covers just really a couple months there at Mount Sinai before they leave. And then the main middle section there covers that bigger chunk of time, the 38 years, as through the wandering and as they shared that generation dying off for their unfaithfulness before the next generation is ready to take them in at the end of the book of Numbers there. All right, let's go ahead to the next slide here. This is going to give you just a little bit of an overview of the first 10 chapters. We're not going to get into we're going to cover 10 chapters today. This is going to be, again, kind of 30,000-foot overview, kind of some big themes. There is some repeat, if you, I don't want to say repeat in themes at least, some overlap with some things that we've studied in Leviticus and even back in Exodus. We're not going to redo all of that, but I want to hit a couple highlights here from chapters 1 through 10, and we'll spend a little bit more time on the parts that are unfamiliar and new here in the book of Numbers. So you can see there census, and then there's a description of the arrangement of the camp, which you saw in the video, some special responsibilities for the Levites related to the tabernacle, some additional rules for purity, for taking vows, some of the offerings, and then right at the end of that section, they celebrate the Passover, and then it's off into the wilderness. They sound these silver trumpets, and off they go into the wilderness. Well, let's start off with this census. Again, there's a census at the beginning and at the end, chapter 1 and chapter 26. You may remember that at one point, David, later in the history of Israel, takes a census, and it's considered sinful. Here, God is the one that commands the Israelites to take a census. So you can see this in Numbers chapters 1, verses 1 and 2. The Lord spoke to Moses in the tent of meeting in the desert of Sinai on the first day of the second month of the second year after the Israelites came out of Egypt. He said, "Take a census of the whole Israelite community by their clans and families, listing every man by name, one by one." So here, this census is obviously not sinful. What makes some censuses sinful and others, the right thing to do? Obviously, God commanding it makes it a good thing to do. It seems like the reason David's census was sinful was because it was done in pride, that he was kind of counting his men, counting his people to kind of thump his chest and say, "Look what a great king I am. Look how powerful we are as a nation." And it was more out of pride, okay? A couple things that we learn in this census. One is that this census shows the magnitude of Israel's size as a nation. Think about it that when the Israelites started out in the beginning of this period of slavery in Egypt, there were 70 Israelites, Jacob and his sons and their families, 70 of them. Through 400 years in slavery, God prospered them and multiplied them despite their hardships, despite their cruel treatment by the Egyptian slave masters. And so now there are this huge number. I can't remember the exact number. I have it in here somewhere. 603,550. There it is. So they've prospered here in these 400 years despite their hardship. And again, this is 603,550, and that's heads of household, fighting age men. And the reason they would count those ones would be because these are the guys that are capable of fighting and facing enemies as they go through the wilderness. There are enemies in the wilderness. There are enemies kind of lurking, and there are Egyptians behind and Canaanites ahead in the promised land. Again, so roughly the estimate here is that roughly 2 million Israelites wandering in the wilderness. And what do you do with 2 million people in the wilderness? It's not just 2 million people, it's 2 million sinners. 2 million people who have until recently been slaves. 2 million people in a hot, dangerous, sparsely vegetated wilderness. And there's no Bass Pro Shop around. No way to get the proper footwear, the proper hunting gear. What could go wrong? At times, as we'll see, Israel is really frustrating. How can you guys be so ungrateful? How can you guys be so disobedient? But it's also very relatable. Anybody a grumbler? Disobedient from time to time? A couple other things we see in this census is that everyone gets counted. They by name. They want everybody. Everybody matters. We also see in this census that there's the importance of leadership and organization. That's going to be another theme that we see here, is that God cares about things being done well, things being done in an orderly way. And so Moses has certain people help with the census, and they arrange people not just by their clans, but also by their tribes, their families. And so, again, this is a big emphasis throughout the book of Numbers, the importance of leading well, leading in an organized fashion. And there are some real important parallels then for the church, for God's people today. God wants his people to be organized. We should have, getting the email list figured out. We should have a clear starting time, and everybody should, get the communication and know what we're doing. Things should be generally clean and orderly. We don't want to make an idol of organization. We don't want to make an idol of cleanliness and timeliness, but those things are important. They're important to God. They should be important to us. So there's some good parallels, things that we can draw and bring into our lives today. The other thing that we see in these censuses, one at the beginning and one at the end, what would you expect? Would there be a net gain in population, or a net loss in population trying to lead 2 million people through this harsh wilderness? We see God's faithfulness and protection, because really there's not much of a change. There's a little bit of a loss, but it really is. It shows God's faithfulness. Who can take care of 2 million people in a desert for 40 years? Who can care not only for their physical needs like food and water and shelter, but also their spiritual needs, leading them away from sin and strife and relationship problems? Nobody can do that. Not Moses, not Aaron, not a whole team of people. It is only by God's gracious provision and protection that they make it and that they are intact as a nation. And so it's despite all the trials and dangers and foolishness and disobedience of the Israelites that God leads them through. God is faithful. There's a slide here with kind of a chart. I don't know if this is interesting to you, but I found this online. It's kind of interesting just seeing which tribes gain and which tribes lost. There's kind of a significant loss for the tribe of Simeon and a significant gain in net population for the tribe of Manasseh. But again, those total numbers, it's just down a little bit from this 40-year period. And so God is faithful in preserving his people. Okay, let's go on to the next section here. And that is the arrangement of the camps. The arrangement of the camps, I mentioned this in the video and showed a bit here. There's a little bit of a discrepancy. That there's prescription for how they are to camp when they're stopped, and then also for how they are to travel. And they're camped with the tabernacle in the middle. Okay, and that tabernacle we've talked about before, that tabernacle that symbolizes the presence of God and the holiness of God. And the tabernacle is always, the opening into the tabernacle, kind of complex, this outer curtain is always facing east. So you're coming, just as Adam and Eve were banished to the east of Eden, coming back to the tabernacle, coming back to God's presence is always west, back into God's presence. Moses and Aaron are right around the opening there, and then the Levites are positioned right around the tabernacle, and then the other tribes are arranged around the tabernacle beyond that. There is some disagreement. You can go ahead to the next slide. There are a couple pictures here. We'll come back to that. Yeah. This is the way they showed it in the video is that it was like in that shape of a cross. There are different, if you read the passage here about the arrangement of the camps, it's not totally clear how they're all laid out. So this is one possibility, that they're laid out kind of more circular or rectangular around the tabernacle in the middle. And then go ahead to the next one. This is the version that was in the video there, that it's more of a cross shape. And I'm not sure, it's not real clear from the text itself, but I think that's an interesting thing. Okay, go ahead to the next slide there. Again, just a couple things we can learn here. It's possible, one suggestion is that this is for military reasons. The way they situate the camp is for protection and everybody kind of balanced out. It's more for military purposes. But there are also these theological purposes, these theological reasons. And I think these are the more important thing. Again, God is central. The tabernacle is in the middle of the camp. God is central. He's not on the periphery of their lives. He's central. He's their focus, their main loyalty. Sometimes you might hear people kind of use little like cute phrases. Everybody needs a little bit of Jesus in their life. We don't need a little bit of Jesus in our life. We need Jesus to be our everything. We are absolutely dependent on him. We are lost without him. So it's not we need a little bit of Jesus. We need him. We need God in the middle of everything. We are not the center of the universe. God is. We are like planets orbiting. He is central. He is the main focus. All the way up until Revelation. Christ is in the middle on the throne, and everybody else is around worshiping. He's in the middle. So that's the theological. As they mentioned in the video, God is also the leader. The ark goes first. Everybody's following. God is our leader. We're going to follow him. And so you can imagine this kind of impressive train through the wilderness with the Levites going first, carrying the Ark of the Covenant, symbolizing God is primary. He's our leader. We go where he goes. And we're just followers. We're going along. And so this whole train of 2 million people stretched out behind the Ark of the Covenant. Another theological point here is that God is always with us. God is always with us, and this is described in this pillar of cloud by day and pillar of fire by night. I have a slide for that? Maybe? All right. Another consideration here is the symbolism of the camp and the tents and that kind of thing. Paul picks this up in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, and he describes our bodies and our earthly life as tents. Okay, so this is 2 Corinthians 5. He says, now we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God on an eternal house in heaven, not built by human hands. So our bodies are tents. They're not permanent. Our homes now, we do all we can to take good care of our homes, but they're not permanent. It's all going to be be in the fire of judgment eventually, right? And so our permanent home is not here. This is not our permanent body. This is not our permanent residence. Our citizenship is in heaven. There's an old Negro spiritual that the words say, this world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. The angels beckon me from heaven's open door, and I can't feel at home in this world anymore. So as we read about the Israelites wandering in the wilderness, we're reminded this is not our permanent home. This is not our true home. Okay, go ahead to the next slide. A couple things about the Levite responsibilities. We read here that the Levites are actually divided into 3 subgroups: the Gershonites, the Merarites, and the Kohathites, and they each have specific responsibilities in the camp for how they take care of the tabernacle. And again, we just see that God is a God of organization, a God of orderliness. Everyone has a job, everyone has a role to play. We could see there'd be lots of application for our homes. Everybody has a job to do. Kids, you got chores to do. Everybody's got a role to play. just like the Levites. Everybody's got a job to do. We're not just going to wing it and you do whatever and well, it'll get done and let's figure it out. No, everybody's got an assigned role. There's leadership and there's organization. You can go ahead to the next slide. Beyond the organization and the delegation, there's also the holiness and the unapproachability of God as we are. There's still this sense of the holiness of God. We can't even come into his presence. Not just anybody can pick up the curtain or the pillar, the piece that holds the curtain for the tabernacle. It's only the Levites who have gone through the proper purification rituals. And this all points to Jesus as our perfect high priest. You can't just come into God's presence. You need to be clean. There needs to be perfect sacrifice. For us as Christians, we look at these and say, yes, because Jesus is the one that has cleansed us. He is our perfect high priest. They couldn't just pick up and carry any old piece of the tabernacle. But in Christ, we've been allowed through the curtain. The temple curtain has been torn. Okay, go ahead to the next slide. Yeah, 1 Corinthians 14:40. Everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way. All right, then the last about this, the roles, the different jobs for the Levites. The Levites, according to Numbers chapter 3, are a substitute for Israel dedicating their firstborn to the Lord. So if you remember, one of the plagues in Egypt was that the firstborn would be killed, in that last plague. And Israel also owes their firstborn animal, firstborn child to the Lord. And but the Lord accepts the Levites in place of the firstborn. And again, this is a pointer to Christ. The firstborn, instead of the firstborn being surrendered to Christ, it's the Levites, the priest. Jesus is our priest. He is the substitute. We're in God's debt. We owe him. And Jesus is the priest that goes in our place. He's our great high priest. Okay, go ahead to the next slide. There's, again, in chapter 5 through 8, this section about rules for purity and vows and a couple things. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here just because we've hit those themes already in Leviticus. But just, again, to hit the highlight, that the emphasis here is on a carefully planned, organized, clean camp. God does not want the Israelite camp to be chaotic, disorderly, dirty. There's even, if you read later in Deuteronomy, there's an arrangement for how they use the bathroom. It's not just like go wherever you want and figure it out on your own. There's an orderly plan for all these things. God is a God of order and cleanliness and organization and leadership, delegation. Those are all important to the Lord. Okay, and then go ahead to the next one there. There's this section here in Numbers 6 that's... you might say it's kind of shuffled in there. Where does it fit? There's these different rules for different aspects, but this might be a passage that you're familiar with, and I think it's one that we ought to know. This one would be worth memorizing. Okay, so this is in Number 6. The Lord teaches Moses to teach the priests this prayer to pray over Israel, and I think it's a relevant prayer that we should pray over our families and pray over our church. And so this is the prayer. It's just 3 lines there, verses 24 through 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. What a wonderful blessing, a great prayer to pray over your family, that the Lord would bless you, turn his face toward you, be kind to you and faithful. Of course, he is those things, but is asking God for a special blessing. And so this is a way that, as you see there, so they will put my name on the Israelites and I will bless them. What a great prayer of blessing. Okay, the last bit here of this first section, Numbers 1 through 10, they celebrate the Passover. This is something they've been commanded to do, remembering God's deliverance for them out of Egypt. And then they sound the silver trumpets, and it's off into the wilderness. And so that's Numbers 1 through 10. Again, the mega themes that we're going to be looking at is just this whole idea of wandering, being pilgrims and sojourners. We're just passing through. These are not our permanent roots. We're not settling down here. The need for Israel to be faithful and obedient, their failure to do so, but God's ongoing grace. They mess up time and time again. That's me. And God continues to show grace and favor, providing for them, providing for their physical needs, taking care of them. Okay, let's turn a corner and hit Mother's Day, okay? So I'm looking forward to Numbers. I hope you're excited to read the book of Numbers and study. There's lots of good resources online, but hopefully this will be a good study for us as a church, and you'll want to do some diving on your own at home. Kids, do you want to honor your mom on Mother's Day? Raise your hand, kids, if you would like to honor your mom on Mother's Day. You like to do that? Not a lot of enthusiasm. Kids, do you want to honor your mom on Mother's Day? It's a little trap here and trick. Yeah. This past week, I texted some of our moms. Okay, just picked a couple handfuls. And I asked them, I gave them a little list. This is a little quiz. It was a one-question quiz, and I asked them, which of these would you like for your kids to do or to give you on Mother's Day? What would you like to receive from your kids on Mother's Day? You can go ahead and put that slide up. There were these 8 options: chocolate and flowers, breakfast in bed. Anybody get breakfast in bed this morning? I thought the Rodriguez boys always gave. Didn't you guys do breakfast in bed? Forgot? Yikes. Fail. So chocolate and flowers, breakfast in bed, clothes or jewelry, supper at a nice restaurant, ongoing respect towards you. Ongoing respect towards you. Going on a family walk, a heartfelt handwritten note, or them, that's you kids, living wisely. What do you think? Just whisper to your neighbor, or your parents or whatever, what do you think that the moms picked? Now, there was some variety. There was one selfish mom that said, I would like all of those things. I won't tell you who that was. They were all thinking it, but only one had the guts to say it. All right, so this is out of 15 or so moms that responded. How many of you think that A was the most popular answer, chocolate and flowers? No. In fact, nobody said A. Nobody picked A as their top. Nobody picked B or C or D as their top. Okay? The bottom 4 are the more popular ones. So we'll go in order here. The bronze medal goes to, this is the 3rd most popular, ongoing respect towards you. Did you think that was going to be number 1? I thought that might be number 1. Ongoing respect. One of the ways, guys, and we're going to look at a couple Bible verses from Proverbs here. One of the most important ways, one of the ways that your mom really wants for you to honor her is by being respectful in an ongoing way. And that means not just on Mother's Day, but like all the time, to be respectful. All right, silver medal. A heartfelt handwritten note. I think heartfelt maybe was the deal sealer. A couple moms picked this. A heartfelt handwritten note. And you can imagine why that would be special to a mom. A heartfelt note is not just, love you, Mom, thanks, but a heartfelt note thanking her for all the things that she does for you, all the things that she is for you. A heartfelt handwritten note. You guys know about love languages? Some people have that love language of being affirmed, and some moms really love to get those special notes from their kids. All right, number 1, and it was a landslide. The most common, what's that? Every mom's dream. No, the most popular, almost all the moms said this, is either kind of like 1 or 2, or it was on there somewhere, was that you would live wisely, Oh, man. If you want to honor your mom, you should live wisely. We're going to look at a couple biblical passages here from the book of Proverbs. Proverbs has some things for moms and kids, how they can honor their moms. If you think about it here, chocolates, if you're anything like our house, chocolates don't last long, okay? Flowers, a little bit longer, but eventually they wither, right? All these other things kind of like fade, right? They don't last real long. Even a really nice letter might last how long? Maybe mom would keep a letter that you give her for Mother's Day. Maybe she'd keep it for the rest of her life, right? But wisdom lasts longer than that. We had some groups, some study groups that studied the book To the 10th Generation. And moms, godly moms, care about not just today or this week, but they care about not only my whole life, but the next generation and the future generations. I care about my great-great-great-great-grandkids. I want them all to know Jesus. I want them all to live wisely. And if my kids would live wisely, that would be so much better than chocolate, which is, it goes so quick. And so moms want their kids to live with wisdom, because if you live with wisdom, wisdom is having a good knowledge, good understanding, good prudence, knowing how to live well, how to live wisely, how to be skillful in the way that you speak, in the way you interact with people, the way you conduct yourself at work and in your relationships. And it takes care of a lot of things. If somebody just really values wisdom, they're going to seek wisdom, and they're going to gain wisdom, and they're going to have wisdom then for lots of areas. It doesn't mean they're going to be perfect, but it's going to straighten out a lot of things for their life. So we're going to look at a couple Proverbs. The book of Proverbs is all about wisdom, and then we're going to look at some Proverbs, kids, about how to honor your parents. This is for big kids too, so if your mom's still living, you want to think about living wisely to honor her. Proverbs 1, verses 8 and 9. Listen, my son, to your father's instructions. There's an application here for the dads too. Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. They will be a garland to grace your head and a chain to adorn your neck. Go ahead to the next one. Do not forsake your mother's teaching. Go ahead. Proverbs 6. My son, keep your father's command and do not forsake your mother's teaching. Bind them upon your heart forever. Fasten them around your neck. When you walk, they will guide you. When you sleep, they will watch over you. When you awake, they will speak to you. For these commands are a lamp. This teaching is a light. And the corrections of discipline are the way to life. Good moms want life for their kids. They want this watching over you and speaking to you, being a lamp for your path. Moms want you to be wise and listen to their teaching. Go ahead to the next one. Couple Proverbs that say kind of the same thing, a little bit of variety here. Proverbs 10:1, a wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish son grief to his mother. So one of the ways you honor your mom is by not forsaking her teaching. If you want to dishonor your mom, you should be foolish. A wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish man despises his mother. Proverbs 17, a foolish son brings grief to his father and bitterness to the one who bore him. You want your mom to be bitter? You want her to be an old grouchy lady someday? Be foolish. Proverbs 20:20, if a man curses his father or mother, his lamp will be snuffed out in pitch darkness. You respecting your mom and your dad, respecting your mom, honoring her, wanting to please her, listening to her, heeding her advice, really, really important for you and for her. Go ahead to the next one. Proverbs 29:15, the rod of correction imparts wisdom, but a child left to himself disgraces his mother. Disgrace. You don't want to disgrace your mother. You want to honor her, and not just today, all the days. Proverbs 30:17, the eye that mocks a father, that scorns obedience to a mother, will be pecked out by the ravens of the valley, will be eaten by the vultures. Now that's symbolic language, kids, but it means it would be worse. It would be worse to dishonor, to disgrace your mom. That would be worse than to have your eyes pecked out by the ravens. You really want to honor your mom. Again, if you want to honor your mom and your dad, you will respect her, listen to her, gain wisdom from her, ask her questions. Teenagers, not cool to ask your mom questions for advice. Not cool, but wise. It is wise to ask your mom, Mom, what would you do? I'm having this situation. Mom, is there anything going on in my schoolwork, something that you think I should be doing different? A wise son, a wise daughter heeds mom's correction. When mom says, stop whining, you should stop whining. When mom says, pick up your mess, you should pick up your mess. not roll your eyes, then pick up your mess. You should pick up your mess. It's good for her, honors her, and it's good for you. If mom says say please and thank you, you should say please and thank you. She says do your homework, you should do your homework. Your mom is a little bit like God in this. Your mom is, and your dad, your parents are representing God to you. When God gives us commands, he's giving us commands that are for our good. They honor him. When we obey God's commands, we're representing him well. We're glorifying him through our obedience. But it's also good for us. And your mom is like that too. When your mom gives you a command, when she gives you instruction, when she gives you advice, you listening to her, you obeying her, that's honoring to your mom. It's also good for you. Your mom loves you better than Google. You know that? If you're a teenager especially, if you got a phone, you might be tempted, I need some advice. Let me check with AI and see what I can find out. AI does not love you. Your mom loves you. Your mom knows you better than AI does. Your mom also knows and trusts God's word, and AI doesn't know and trust God's word. Ask your mom, talk to her, glean from her, learn everything you can from your mom. It'll go so quick. Sometimes I wonder, remember that Jesus' disciples, they had like discussions and arguments over who was the greatest sometimes. I wonder if that ever came back later. Hey, remember when we were arguing about that? How stupid was that? I have so many questions I would love to ask Jesus. He was only with us for a short time. I would love to just go back in time and throw out all those stupid arguments we had and ask Jesus a bunch of questions. And I have things like that with my parents. I wish, what was I doing? I was being an idiot, arguing with my siblings about stuff. There's so many things I would like to ask my dad, and things I can thankfully still ask my mom. But hey, don't wait on that. Ask your mom questions. Learn. Get all the wisdom that you can. Okay, an encouragement to moms here. So kids, you want to honor your moms. You listen to them, obey them, heed their correction on all kinds of things. An encouragement to moms. Moms, we're thankful for you. Sean praised our moms, and there's lots of things to praise. We've got some wonderful moms, godly moms at our church here. A reminder to you moms, your kids, they need your hugs. They need your affirmation. They need you to wash clothes and feed them and do all the practical things. But they need your wisdom. They need your godliness. They need your knowledge of the Word of God. They are desperate for your correction, for your guidance. Not you alone, alongside your husband, but you're with your kids, usually more often than dad. You see things, you're more perceptive. Sometimes us dads are doltish. Your kids need your wisdom. Don't shy away from this sacred responsibility to pass on wisdom, the knowledge of God, knowledge of His Word. Sometimes moms, and I'm speaking for our home, in their great love, sometimes withhold punishment. It's hard, it creates strife, and it's just easier to let it go. We don't want to do this. Our kids need it. They need it. They need it so desperately. And so, moms, teach your kids, exhort them, punish them as appropriate, or discipline them. Don't let them get away with stuff. Don't let them get away with foolishness. If you want to be honored, you don't want to be a bitter lady someday. Help your kids to grow in wisdom. We're going to close in song. We have the music team come up. I just wanted to read a short thing. I read this online for moms. This says, "We've gone so far down the road of feminism that we've forgotten how to proudly be feminine." This is written by a woman. You want to carry a child in your bones and lay down your life for them for more than 18 years? You want to lay down your life and learn to die to self for the rest of your life? You want to serve someone with all your heart, body, and soul? You want to master the art of cooking for a crowd and have clean clothes and end each day knowing that there's a group of people who look to you as one of their anchors and rocks? You want to work your tired body from dawn to dusk for love? How silly it is not. How trivial is no way to describe it. I wish we loved the strength it takes for a woman to become a wife and a mother. We marvel at her physical strength when she births a child, but we forget what invisible strength she shows when she lays down her life for her home every day after that. Social media spends all its energy telling women to remember who they are, to fight for their sacred spaces, to become the women they want to be. All things that feel confusing when you're holding a newborn baby and learning to forget your self-centeredness, to allow others into your personal space, and to become the woman that you are becoming and not who you thought you'd be. I wish that as a culture we understood what happens in those four walls when two adults decide to sacrifice for one another, be good stewards of their money, welcome in guests, and raise a generation to know the heritage of the Lord. I wish we called it more than a contract, an agreement, or even a commitment to vows. I wish we called it holy, beautiful, otherworldly. When a woman says she wants to make dinner for her family, we crack a joke about June Cleaver and we laugh because who wants to waste their time with that? When a woman says she wants to stay home and raise children, we give a curt smile and say, but what do you really want to do with your life? And should she decide to pursue that, other women will be the first to look down their noses at her, tell her she's not adding anything, that she's slowing down progress, as if giving up your life for others isn't an incredible thing. So happy Mothers to our Mother's Day. Kids, honor your moms today and always live wisely, and we're so thankful for you moms. Let's stand and close in song.
Life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to Thee. Take my moments and my days, let them flow in ceaseless praise. Take my hands and let them move at the impulse of Thy love. Take my feet and let them be swift and beautiful for Thee. Take my voice and let me sing, always only for my King. Take my lips and let them be filled with messages from Thee. Take my silver and my gold, not a mite would I withhold. Take my intellect and use every power as You choose. Here am I, me.
All of me.
Take my life, it's all for Thee.
It's all for Thee.
Take my will and make it Thine, it shall be no longer mine. Take my heart, it is Thine own, it shall be Thy royal throne. Take my love, my Lord, I pour at Your feet, its treasure store. Take myself and I will be ever only all for Thee. Here am I, for Thee.
It's all for Thee.
Here am I, all of me.
All of me.
Take my life, it's all for Thee.
It's all for Thee.
Take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord.
Happy Mother's Day again to all the moms, and have a wonderful week.